Baby eczema sucks. I'm going to talk about our journey through it with Rocket, which products worked, which ones didn't, and which ones we continue to use. But first, let's go get some tea. Baby eczema, what a journey. When Rocket was about 10 or 11 weeks old, her baby eczema hit hard. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Around 2 weeks old, she started getting baby acne, and it cleared up most of the way by 5 or 6 weeks. She still had some red cheeks going on, but they were just a little bit dry, and we thought that they would resolve themselves on their own. But they didn't. Those cheeks kind of looked okay for a while, and then 11 weeks hit, and all of a sudden her whole face got really red, and there was like splotches of just really dry red skin, and I did not know what to do. For the first few days that I noticed her eczema, I started trying to treat it with breast milk because I had heard that breast milk is kind of a cure-all for so many ailments, including baby eczema. So I gave that a try because I had so much of it. It did not work for us. After about 2 days of noticing that it was there, it started getting really bad and really dry despite the breast milk. And Chad agreed that we needed to find some heavy moisturizer to try to fix it. Our first moisturizer that we tried for Rocket was the Aveeno Baby Eczema Care Nighttime Balm. That one was highly rated on Amazon and a few other places that parents said it worked really well for their kids. We tried it on Rocket the first day that we got it, and it made her face really red, but I wasn't sure if that meant that it was reacting to it or if it was just that her skin was so irritated that no matter what you put on it, it's gonna be kind of irritated by it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not working. So we continued to use it for a few days. The main thing that I noticed the first night that we put it on her is that she rubbed her eyes, and when she rubbed her eyes, she got it into her eyes, and then her eyes were red and stinging. And obviously that made her very irritable. That one we used on her stomach when her stomach started breaking out really bad and we couldn't get it under control. We were like, oh, we'll use this Aveeno Baby stuff. So we put it on her stomach, and within like 2 hours, her whole stomach was red and inflamed. And I was like, oh my goodness. She was reacting to this the whole time that I was putting it on her. Honestly, that was probably only for like 5 days, but it was probably 10 times a day for 5 days. And I felt so bad that she was actually having some sort of reaction to it. And so we threw that one out. That's why I didn't give you this is what we had first, because when Rocket started walking around, she would get into it, and like I did not want it on her skin because it made her skin freak out. So that went in the trash, and I cannot recommend that to anybody. Some people swear by it, but I have heard a lot of horror stories about it as well. Like people put it on and their skin breaks out like mad, and you have to get a steroid treatment just to get it under control. So Aveeno Baby did not work. That did not work at all for us. After a couple of days of it not getting much better, we went to a walk-in doctor. They referred us to a pediatrician, saying that it is eczema, not a big deal, whatever. Go to the pediatrician, he'll calm your fears. So we went to the pediatrician. Pediatrician said, yes, it is eczema. It's a mild case of eczema, but you do have to keep it moisturized. However you can do that, you do that. Doesn't matter how many applications you have to do a day. If you have to do it 20 times a day, do it 20 times a day. Keep the baby moisturized, and that is all you have to do. But that's a big job. The pediatrician suggested mineral oil because if she did get it in her eyes, it wouldn't hurt. Also, if she rubbed it in her mouth, because, you know, babies do that, it wouldn't cause any issues or be bad for her. So I decided to pick up some mineral oil and give it a try because the Aveeno wasn't really cutting it either. So let's give something else a try. This is the mineral oil I got. You can see how much we still have left. It didn't work. It did nothing. It did nothing at all. I have not found very many uses for it since then other than re-oiling a cutting board, which is fine. It did nothing for her skin though. The pediatrician did also say to make sure that there's not very much detergent in her wash. So we don't have our own laundry in unit at our apartment. We do have one in the building, but people use softeners and whatever other detergents they use in it, and it gets all built up in the slide down to the washer. So I decided to try to figure out how I could get around that. For a couple weeks, I tried to just clean out the machines like crazy before I used them. That wasn't very feasible, and it still didn't get everything out. So I called around, and there is a laundromat nearby that did actually clean their machines every night and make sure that everything got out of there. Plus the place where the detergent and stuff goes in was just literally straight on top. It didn't have to go down a chute or a slide or anything. It just dropped straight in. So there was very little to clean if there was anything left over from somebody else. That was amazing. Obviously, I still had to go to the laundromat, which is not amazing, but that laundromat is amazing and I love them still. They would give me free bottles of water and cookies while I was doing my laundry, and they'd always ask how we're doing and how my baby's doing. It was amazing. They're so sweet. The doctor did mention that because babies don't really get too dirty, you don't need a lot of detergent with it. That sounded good at the time, but obviously you do need detergent to get out some stuff. He pretty much said that it didn't really matter what I used as long as it was just a small amount of it, or not anything at all if I could get away with that. The laundry detergent that we chose to switch to was this Nellie's All Natural Baby Laundry Soda. It says to use, I think, 1 scoop for a medium load, and I think I did half a scoop for a large load most of the time. We used that one for about 11 months without it breaking out her skin any farther, so we continued with it. I don't think that it's the best laundry detergent in the world, but it did work for what we needed it to do. It did kind of wear on her clothes a little bit, and it didn't get everything as clean as I would like it to be. Things came out still kind of gray, white, and a little just kind of worn and grungy looking. But when they're a baby, you change out their clothes every 2 months anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. By the time it started looking bad, you had to get new ones anyways because she was already growing out of them. So this is what we used for the first year or so of her life after her baby eczema started up. The pediatrician did tell us to not really use much soap in her baths, if any at all, because again, really you can pretty much wash off anything that a baby has on them with just water most of the time. So we didn't use much at all. We did have to use shampoo sometimes, and we did want to clean her body every few days or once a week just to help get gross stuff off of her. So it took a little bit to figure out what we wanted to get, but we tried this CeraVe baby wash and shampoo. We got it at Shoppers Drug Mart. And it was pretty expensive. I think it was $20-something for this little thing. But this is all we've used. We haven't bought another one. And she's 1.5 now. So it did not hurt her skin any more than what was already going on. It never seemed to break out after a bath or anything like that to make us think that this was causing an issue. So we continued to use this, and it's been good. We did try a Mustela baby bath cream thing, and it was okay, but it did seem like it might be causing an issue for her. So we tried the CeraVe instead, and because the CeraVe worked better for us, we just didn't even try the other stuff, because if it was just one time this isn't working, we're not going to keep trying it, because we were desperate to find something that was going to work. We weren't going to waste our time on something that wasn't working anymore. The same day that I went to the pediatrician the first time about her eczema, I decided to cut out dairy from my diet. I had done it a little bit earlier in Rocket's life because she had reflux. She had pretty bad reflux. She wasn't She didn't spit up a lot, but you could hear it in her throat every time she laid down, and then she would scream. And I felt so bad for her. And I knew that a lot of people said dairy can cause that through breast milk. So I had cut out dairy products before for a little bit to see if that would help. And it didn't. But now that I've done it for longer, I know that I really didn't cut it out for long enough to actually see any difference. So the first day that I went to the pediatrician, I also decided to cut out dairy, and that was where that started. I don't remember if it was during the same day that I made the decision or a couple days later, but I made the decision to cut out all allergens out of my diet except for wheat. I decided wheat doesn't seem to have an effect on me that I know of, and if I'm going to cut everything else out, it's going to be very hard to get satiated, like to actually ever be full without wheat. So I cut out all of the major allergens except for wheat from my diet. So that's 7 main allergens. It was all of dairy or any derivative of dairy, including natural flavoring, whey, any of that. So dairy products, eggs, peanuts, other nuts, fish, and soy, and shellfish. But like, I don't really eat shellfish, so that wasn't a big deal. I don't like shrimp. That's just how it is. So that's not a big deal for me, but everything else I cut out. Pretty much my diet went down to bread, rice, meat, and vegetables and fruit. The only thing that I could put on any of that was oil or vinaigrette. A very pure vinaigrette also, because it could not have sulfites. If you look into what dairy products are in pretty much everything, like if you look at a list of what labels are constituted as having partial dairy in them or partial soy, that cuts out pretty much all processed food. So during this time, I had to go down to pretty much eating, obviously vegetables and fruit are good for you, and that's great, but they're not super filling on their own other than potatoes, which I ate a lot of. But my diet was very restricted. So the problem of baby eczema was no longer just the baby eczema, but also the fact that I could not eat a lot of things. And if anybody wanted to make food for me, because this is during the postpartum time frame, people are offering to make food, which is so nice, but I couldn't let them give me food because I couldn't eat it. I needed to know exactly how it was made and what was in it, down to like every last small ingredient, because if they put butter on the vegetables, I couldn't have it. So only oil on vegetables. Most people use butter in pretty much everything, and I do now as well, but I could not use it then. I couldn't have toast with butter. Like I could have toast with oil, which sucks. Toast with oil is gross. But that was my go-to breakfast thing because that's pretty much all I could eat without having to prepare something. So back to the products. We did try a Mustela eczema cream, I think it was, some sort of cream or lotion from Shoppers. And we tried, I don't even know if we tried it on her. I think I opened it and looked at the consistency of it and was like, yeah, no, this is not going to work at all. This is thinner than the lotion that I put on my body. There's no way that this is going to deep moisture anything. So I just took that straight back. We did get this, again, CeraVe Baby healing ointment. It is like 50% Vaseline, but this is the only thing that started actually moisturizing her skin for a good while. We would go through one of these bottles every 2 weeks, which got really expensive because I think they're like $25 a bottle. So we would put this on her literally about 20 times a day. Every diaper change, I was slathering her whole body in it because she had breakouts on her stomach. She had breakouts on her back. She had them everywhere. Obviously her face, her knees, her elbows. I don't know. She was broken out pretty much everywhere. And so we used this. Oh, it's 46% Vaseline. So this is what we used for the first little bit to get it under control. And this was like, if we use this 10 to 20 times a day, it was borderline under control. It's still borderline. It would still break out and we would not be able to get it under control with this easily again. And there was still a lot of hopelessness around it, but this did help get to that borderline. So did it work? Kind of. It worked better than a lot of stuff. So maybe give it a try if you can. It is also pretty expensive though. So also, a lot of people said that using just Vaseline on their kid twice a day did the job well for them. So we gave that a try. I didn't think it was going to work because I knew that she needed more moisture, not just the barrier. And Vaseline is a great barrier, but it is just that. Like, it's not super moisturizing. I don't know. I guess some people really like it as a moisturizer, but for me, it doesn't work as a moisturizer. So I didn't really expect that it would work for Rocket either. It didn't. It was an okay barrier. Sometimes we would put on like sometimes we would put this on and then put this on top of it because we wanted extra barrier to try to keep it on as long as possible, especially at nighttime. So we would put on like the CeraVe baby and then put on Vaseline and then put on jammies and hope that it would last for 10 or 12 hours at nighttime because I didn't want to undress her and have to put stuff on her all night long because then she's not going to sleep. Which she still didn't sleep very well because I did do that a few times because I was so desperate to get her skin under control. Also, one of the first things that we tried was coconut oil. The trusty old coconut oil that generally people say is pretty good for dry skin, and some people claim that it has cleared up their kids' eczema. It did not for us. It definitely did not heal or moisturize anything deeper in her skin. So it didn't work for us. As an ingredient, it's good, but on its own, it didn't do the job. Oh, yes. Also, we found this Weleda baby sensitive care body lotion at some point. I think it was on Amazon. I know that they have it on Amazon. And it worked for about a month. I used it on her probably 10 times, 5 to 10 times a day once it was like borderline under control. We were using this for about 3 months and we decided it was emptying our pockets too much. So we wanted to try something else that maybe we could lessen this and use something else in the meantime, like in between applications of this. And so I wanted something that was more of a lotion, like a cream consistency, to try to get down into the skin. And then if I could just put like Vaseline on top for the barrier. So I found this Weleda baby, which a lot of people said was really good for their baby's eczema. It worked for us for I think about a month. I would use it a couple times a day in between doing this. I think I still did this about 5 times a day. And I did this probably another 5. After about a month, I noticed that it really wasn't doing anything anymore. I don't know if her skin just got used to it. I have no idea, but for some reason it stopped working at all. And so I think we had just bought our second bottle of it at that time, and there's still at least half a bottle in here a year later because we haven't used it anymore. At the same time of getting the second bottle of this, I got a Weleda Baby Derma White Mallow face cream because this is Mallow and that's what people were claiming was so good on their baby's eczema. So I tried the face cream specifically to see if that would be a little bit more potent of a cream, see if it would be more creamy and dense so that on her face, maybe it would be a little bit more moisturizing than just like a lotion consistency. This one, for some reason, even when the lotion was working, it did not work at all. I don't know why. It is more of a creamy consistency like I wanted. Like it's kind of it sticks up when you do this, which means it's obviously a bit of a cream. But for some reason, it didn't work at all for her. The reason we ended up going with a few different Weleda products was because it was really hard to find baby products that don't contain all of those things that babies aren't supposed to have in their products. It was ridiculous. You're not supposed to have fragrances or phthalates or parabens. And yet, most of the baby products have all 3 of those, or at least 1 or 2 of them. So it was really hard to find products that were safe for a baby that didn't actually have any of those things, but they were formulated for a baby. So we did find a few of those things with the Weleda line, so we got a few of those items. This is called Weleda Skin Food. It's not formulated specifically for babies, but it had a lot of the same ingredients that the baby stuff did, and it didn't have anything in it that was not baby safe. So I got it. I also wanted to try it for me because my skin was breaking out in the winter. It really didn't fix my dry skin much either, and it doesn't seem to really do much on Rockets still to this day. It's like a salve consistency. It's like a creamy salve-ish, kind of creamy salve consistency. Anyways, that didn't really work great for us. Maybe it will work better for you. Some people have some really good reviews about it, but it didn't work for us. Moving on to beloved Bag Balm. Bag Balm has this like crazy cult following that I think has existed for like 100 years at least, probably since Bag Balm was invented. If I remember right, it was formulated for like cows or something, for cracked udders or something like that. And then farmers started using it on their hands and it was great. And that's really great. And some people really love this stuff for healing like cracked feet and cracked elbows and whatever. That's like actually what it names on the side here. But again, it really did not do much for her eczema. It's a great barrier, just like Vaseline, because it is mostly Vaseline, but it didn't do very much for moisture. I've still used it a few times to try to help with different dry spots, either on myself or on Rocket, and usually it doesn't do that much, but it does create a good barrier. Around where we live, it was really hard to find this, and my mom shipped this to me from the States, and it still didn't really do much for her, so we haven't really gotten another one. Also, Bag Balm is one that you definitely don't want them to get in their eyes or their mouth, which can be really hard as babies get older. When she had first just started getting her eczema around 3 months, she did rub her eyes and her mouth a bit, but it wasn't too bad. Like if I put this on her body, I don't think I ever put this on Rocket's face because I didn't want it to end up in her mouth or her eyes, because that would not feel good at all. But I did put it on her body. As she got older, that became harder because she would touch her legs or her arms or whatever, and then she would still put it in her mouth. So that just got really tough over time to keep something on her that wasn't okay going in her mouth. And Bag Balm doesn't really soak in quickly, so it wasn't one of those things where you can put it on and just like kind of keep her distracted for 2 minutes and she'd be fine. You'd have to keep her distracted for a long time. At some point we ran out of diaper rash cream that we liked and we couldn't find any more and didn't really know what to go to, and I found this stuff, which is called Baby Balm. I thought it might possibly help with her skin as well. It definitely did not help with her skin. It didn't hurt, but it didn't do anything. And it was kind of okay for a diaper rash barrier. It definitely didn't work for getting rid of a diaper rash, but it kind of is okay for a protectant when the skin is completely healthy. Also, olive oil. This is what I thought was going to work for a baby when I was pregnant, and my mom was like, so what are you going to use for moisturizer? I was like, oh no, we're not going to use moisturizer because baby's skin will regulate itself. And if it doesn't, then I'm just going to use some olive oil and it will do the job, because that's what I use on me when I get out of the shower. So naive. I did use it on Rocket a couple times and it did absolutely nothing. If you are watching this and you have a baby with baby eczema, I'm sure you've probably already exhausted this route. And so I don't think you need to see this part, but the olive oil did absolutely nothing for baby eczema. Obviously, it's okay as a regular moisturizer. I use it still. If you have already healthy skin, yeah, sure, it's fine. But if the skin is having a really hard time healing, this did not do anything for it. It's okay to use for like a massage oil or something because it didn't cause any extra breakouts, but it definitely did not do anything to heal the baby eczema. Rocket had some pretty nasty cradle cap going on. It wasn't really, really bad. Like it wasn't super flaky or like really built on there, but it was really stubborn. She would get it and I just could not get it off. And then if I really did get it off, it would come right back. Like I could see the oil seeping out of her skin and just reaccumulating on top of it. So that was really frustrating. But when I brought it up to the pediatrician, he was like, baby eczema and cradle cap are like cousins and they kind of go together a lot of times on kids. But the problem that I had with her cradle cap is that it came down a little bit in front of her hairline, and then it came onto the crown of her head right here, which is where her eczema also was. So I didn't know if these red portions were eczema. Do I treat them as I would treat the baby eczema, or do I treat them as cradle cap? Because they're pretty much opposite treatments. With cradle cap, you're trying to get the oil off of the skin because it's too much oil. It's like the sebum buildup and the oil buildup on the skin that you don't want, because then it can get infected and stuff. So you want to take oil off. But with baby eczema, you want to put oil on, like get oil, get cream, whatever. You want to get oils into the skin because it's not producing enough on its own. So they're pretty much opposite treatments, and that was really hard for me to figure out. So I was trying to treat it as baby eczema for the first while, but it seemed like it was just like starting to crust over. And so I was like, okay, I don't think that I'm supposed to be treating it like this anymore. So I went back to the doctor and asked him about it, and he said, okay, yeah, you have to treat this one like Cradle cap. And with the Cradle cap, we were like scrubbing off the sebum and then using a gentle shampoo with it. But as soon as we got her dry and we patted her dry, I could literally see the oil coming back out of her skin and starting to reaccumulate. And if I patted it, I could keep patting it, but it would still come out, and it would just kind of almost like a scab. Like when you pick off a scab, it bleeds again until it creates a new scab. And so that's what her skin was doing with her Cradle cap. I could see it happening before my eyes in front of me. And it was so frustrating, and I didn't know what to do about it. For what we ended up classifying as Cradle cap on her crown right here, we did have to use a steroid oil that the doctor prescribed us. It's a peanut oil one. It's an oil for sure. It's an oil, which is weird because when he was like, oh, okay, it's an oil, just put it on. Like you don't have to do too much, but like put it on kind of heavy in the one spot, and then you just knock it out in a couple days and you're done with it. This steroid oil did work for Rocket's Cradle cap on her temple area. So that was good. When we tried to use it on her elbows and knees, when those started breaking out hardcore, it did not work. I don't know why, but it didn't. But it did work for her temples for the Cradle cap stuff. So for her Cradle cap, we did end up getting a couple of these little scrubby brushes. They're a silicone brush with these bumps, and then they've got these like bristles. They're super soft, but they are bristles on this side, and then it's just got a suction cup here for putting on the bath. These ones are FridaBaby ones. I have seen other ones, but these ones were the ones that people had said were really good, and we were pretty desperate to get her Cradle cap to go away because I think she was pushing like 6 or 7 months before we could actually get it under control to stop coming back. So regular washing with a mild shampoo every other day or so wasn't doing the job, and we would kind of scrape on the skin just a little bit to get the flakes off, and then wash it, and then like comb the hair again to try to stimulate the oils to go in the right way. That wasn't working enough for us, so we did get this to try to help, and it did actually work over time. Some of the reviews said that they used it like 2 times and their baby's Cradle cap was gone. That wasn't the case for us, but we did use it, like using this part here. You can kind of get your finger behind it and just like kind of scrub a bit on your baby's head. Obviously not too hard, but you do have to give it a little bit of scrub to get off the oil flakes, I guess. So this did help us. We still use it on her hair for washing her hair because the bristles are really good at getting the shampoo down onto the scalp instead of just kind of sitting on the head. So we still use them. I like them. They were useful in getting the Cradle cap to go away, but I think honestly that was just kind of a time thing. We had to wash her hair every day or every other day for a couple months before I think she just kind of grew out of it, honestly. We washed it, we would get the flakes off, and then we would comb her hair, and that's kind of all we could do. I still don't know really how that one went away. I think it was just a bit of managing it until it went away on its own and until the oil started regulating itself. I think when Rocket was about 5 months old, the eczema started really showing up on the inside of her elbows and the backs of her knees. They say that that's kind of the go-to spots that it just happens to go to all the time when kids grow out of that like newborn phase and start going into around 6 months. The baby eczema like congregates to the insides of the elbows and the backs of the knees and whatever other little crevices. That tends to happen around 6 months. And it did. For Rocket, I think it happened around 5 months. And we were putting what we could on it. I think these were the 2 that we were using all the time at the time. We were putting this on those spots like crazy. The rest of her body was like borderline under control still. Her face had actually cleared up quite substantially, and we were trying to keep it under, like, on the right side of that border, but her elbows and her knees, we could not get under control. We went to the pediatrician, so I showed him her elbows, and he was like, what? You need to get something on this right now because this isn't working. Whatever you're doing isn't working. You have to get this under control. So what I saw as redness, because she had been really red before, and I saw that as pretty much the same amount of redness. He was like, no, this is inflamed. You have to get it under control now because this is going to get bad. And that freaked me out because before I was the one freaking out, and he was like, no, you're good. And this time I was like, I think we're okay. And he's like, no, this is not under control. So we had pretty much exhausted all of our resources. I was halfway starving, and I had no other options at that point, at least nothing that I knew was going to work. We had trial and errored so much that I did not know what else to trial and error. I had read so many reviews, I had researched so much that I didn't know what else to try. So we went with a steroid cream. I have no idea what the steroid cream is anymore because we've had it and all of the label is worn off. So I don't remember what kind it is. I think it's a 1% steroid cream. It is a cream. It's not a balm or a salve or a liquid. It is a cream. And that worked for us. I know that some people say that the balm is the only kind that works for their kid, but for some reason the cream is what worked for Rocket. And that was so useful. Honestly, the instructions for this one are to use it twice a day for up to 5 days, I think. So we used it twice a day on her elbows and her knees. And within the first 3 applications, we saw that it had noticeably gone down, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's actually possibly working. I think that's actually kind of a normal reaction to a steroid treatment because steroid treatments are supposed to be fast. It's supposed to be like a fast acting thing. And you're not really going to get that with other options because it takes the skin so long to heal. I really don't know that much about steroids. I just know that we did try to avoid them for as long as we could, or as much as we could, because I knew that there's this whole thing of the skin can kind of get addicted to it. You don't want to use it repeatedly all the time because it's not good on the skin for long periods of time. When Rocket was about 5 or 6 months, we were using this still, and it was kind of just starting to work more as a barrier. It wasn't giving as much moisture as we needed. Like I said, we had to use the steroid cream as well sometimes to keep places under control. And this was, again, just kind of borderline working for us sometimes. We were keeping things generally under control, but if it ever inched across that border, we were having a really hard time reining it back in. So after we went through, I don't know, $300 to $500 worth of products, some of them being useful considering this one cost like $25, and we went through it every 2 weeks for a good few months. After all that money spent, we decided to come up with our own eczema salve. There was a few recipes out there that people have published on their blogs and things. So we decided to kind of figure out a mesh of those that we thought would work for us, knowing what kind of things were working on her skin and what things weren't. Also, how much essential oil we thought was appropriate to have on a baby's skin compared to most of these salves were used on adults. And obviously essential oils need to be at a much lower ratio for a baby. So lo and behold, we made goop. This is what we lovingly call our eczema salve. Rocket calls it goop because at some point we started calling it goop when she started figuring out talking a little bit. And she still calls it goop. So we just say, hey, we're going to do your goop. And she's okay with that. And she'll get some goop and put it on us because she thinks it's a loving thing to do. So this is our goop. I'm going to show you a recipe of how we do these. I make them every month or two. I have to make a couple batches of it so that we have it on hand, and then we use it usually twice a day on Rocket. If we need it extra, we'll apply more frequently, but usually we can keep it under control at this point with 1 or 2 applications a day, which is great compared to 20. Holy cow, that was so hard. Oh my goodness, if any of you guys are going through doing the ridiculous amount of applications a day, I am so sorry. I really hope your baby grows out of it soon and that you have something that you can use that works well enough that you don't have to do it so frequently. But this is what we use now. I think we started making it when Rocket was about 6 months old, and it was working as well as the CeraVe baby was for us on most occasions. But this is what has been our go-to since then. It is a mixture of shea butter, calendula oil, coconut oil. We did have neem oil in it at one point, but now it's hard to buy, so we don't have neem oil in it anymore. And beeswax. I think that's it. I'm going to be making a video for you about how we make this. I'm going to show you how we make it so that you guys can make it if you want to as well. We buy all of our ingredients for the goop off of Amazon. It's really convenient for us that way. The thing with this though is that it's not an immediate thing. So if you're looking for something that you can go out and buy today, you're probably not going to be able to go out and buy this today unless you can actually go out to like a health store and find all of these ingredients, which you may be able to do. But we buy them on Amazon. We also bought these little metal tins on Amazon. We were using small mason jars at one point, but with the glass, it was just getting risky as she got older and we needed to travel with them. We took them on vacation, so we needed something that wasn't going to break. And these have been pretty good for us. I will show you a recipe for how we do this, but I'll show you just how it looks. So this is a brand new one. We're out of the other one and Chad was like, I'm going to try to keep it for you for the video so that it's pristine. But yeah, so it's a salve consistency. It is oily when you first put it on. You can definitely see that you've got like some sheen salve going on if you put it on and then you go see somebody, people are like, are you sweating? What's going on with your face? It does soak in a few minutes. Usually you'll be fine in a few minutes. We did put it on really thick on Rocket for quite a while. So when people came over to the house and we had just put it on, they're like, why is her face so shiny? So what we use now is the goop. That is what we use constantly, and we will continue to use it because it's been the most reliable thing. And now that we're just in a routine of making it, it's not too expensive for us. I use it sometimes on my feet or on really dry places, like if I wash my hands a ton. COVID-19, so much washing hands. I have been using it on my hands probably once a day just to help get some moisture back into them, and it's been quite useful. I use it on my face sometimes. If I notice that my face is drying out quite a bit, I will use it on my face and it's great. It doesn't make it break out anymore. It is a little bit more heavy, but I haven't noticed it cause breakouts if I don't use it all the time. However, that being said that it's heavy, I haven't noticed it clog any of Rocket's pores or make her break out at all. So that's been really good. So the products that we still use for Rocket are the CeraVe baby sometimes. The only thing that now that she's older, it doesn't work on her hair as much for a shampoo, which is really usually what I use it for. It doesn't get out all of the oil. So I started looking around and I've started using an Honest Company shampoo and body wash, and it's not breaking out her skin now. I don't know if that had any factor in it to begin with, because we did use another Honest one when her baby eczema started and we switched because I couldn't tell if it was hurting it or not. But this was really good for her. And now we're just using a bit of a different shampoo because it helps strip the oils a little bit more because I don't wash her hair frequently. We do still use the steroid cream when necessary. We don't use it all the time. It's usually like we might use a couple applications of it every couple months if there's a spot that is inflamed and we cannot get it under control with the goop. So it has been useful for us, but we don't use it constantly. Her skin is definitely not addicted to it, and that has been really useful. So that's my review of some of the products that we use to get Rocket's eczema under control. At this point, I'm splitting this video into 2 videos because it was going to be over an hour long. If you are currently going through this baby eczema journey, or you want to hear more about our journey through it with Rocket, then please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell so that you are notified when we put out the second part of this video next week. You'll definitely want to check it out. Also, be sure to check out our goop video by clicking on the card at the top or by looking for the link in the description below. I hope that you find what works for you and your baby. See you next time.